Let's get started. We can have conversations about holidays later. But let's talk about the lymphatic system, also known as the immune system. This turns on, there we go. Alright. Could someone please read the first question and then popcorn out?
What is the
Lymphatic.
lymphatic system? What was this?
Here. What is the function of these structures? Hey, you don't need it.
What cells are a part of the lymphatic system? I'll shoot Jasmine.
What are the major classes of antibodies?
Awesome. So these are the 5 things that we are talking about today. So, just to kind of get a sense of what you all kind of know about the lymphatic system or the immune system, when you hear either of those terms, what comes to mind? What do you like? What do you think about? Insides?
Your limbs.
Limbs? Okay.
Nodes.
Lymph node. Yeah, those are really important. We'll talk about those in a little bit. What else?
Fat. Lymphatic.
Lymphatic?
The middle. Fat.
What about it?
Never mind.
Okay, what about immune system? Like, what does it do?
Your
Does anyone
stomach.
Fights off dangerous like viruses and bacteria.
Yeah, it fights off dangerous viruses, bacteria, pathogens, anything that's not supposed to be on or in your body. So we're going to talk about specifics of that system and the different parts of the system, as well as the categorization of those vessels as well. So, your lymphatic system is a vast collection of cells and biochemicals that travel in lymphatic vessels and the organs and glands that produce them. So similar to how the circulatory system vessels are organized, lymphatic vessels also start out as capillaries as the smallest, and then they combine to make lymph nodes and lymphatic vessels that are bigger structurally than your lymphatic capillaries. Lymph nodes are actually specialized organs within your body. So that is a cross-section of what a lymph node looks like. It has been dyed. It's not naturally purple like that, but that's just a dye so that you can see the outer walls of cells easier. Also, when y'all are copying down the notes, you don't have to get every single word. Like, I'm giving you space so that you can write like a sentence or two, but look for key words, look for key definitions and that sort of thing. You don't have to write all of the sentences that are up there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So lymphatic system and immune system are interchangeable. So you can use it in like both, and they mean the same thing. We good to go on? Remember, you don't have to get every word. Just pick the important ones.
Yes.
Yep.
So, within our lymphatic vessels, similar to our circulatory system. So this is actually going to be parallel to our circulatory system as well as like actually taking fluid that's lost from our system. And so what ends up happening is like smallest to largest. So you have capillaries, which are also the smallest in our circulatory system, right? They're in your lungs. That helps with transfer of fluids in this case, instead of transfer of gas in the circulatory system. So you go from capillaries to lymphatic vessels to lymph nodes, then to collecting ducts, and then lymphatic trunks that then return the lost fluid to the circulatory system. Now the pathway starts from your lymphatic capillaries, so the green in that image. It goes to an afferent lymphatic vessels, which just means that it moves it away from the source. Then you go to lymph node, and then your efferent lymphatic vessel, and so this actually moves it further along, and then you have your lymphatic trunk, collecting duct, and then your subclavian vein. So you do not need to memorize these. I just wanted to show you kind of what the pathway looks like and how it parallels to the circulatory system. And so the ends of these vessels are actually closed because they don't continue to recycle like the circulatory system does. It just captures the lost fluid and returns it to the circulatory system. Like it should be filled, but you don't have to memorize it.
Sorry.
It's okay. Specialties class. It's been happening for the past 2 weeks.
But why does it sound like it's right here?
I don't know. At least it's not as loud as last week.
That's really.
That was straight up Jumanji. Alright, is it okay if I move on?
Good.
You can also
On Canvas.
yeah, my slides are always on Canvas if you forget things.
At least he doesn't understand it. Canvas.
Doesn't understand it? What about it?
Other notes are on Canvas. Melanie says they're not on Canvas.
Yeah, these on canvas, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. They will be. They will be tonight.
What? Eyes?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What time?
I don't know. After I get home. After I finish playing tomorrow.
Oh, miss. Can you go back? My bad.
Probably like. I get home around 5:30.
Miss, I'll be on my thing until like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll get done soon.
Also, it's not due today. You don't know that.
Oh yeah, it's good like
Friday, right?
5 weeks from now.
No. Subclavian vein.
Oh yeah.
Subclavian vein means it's underneath your clavicle. So there's a vein that runs underneath your clavicle, and it returns it to that. So that it, pretty big, yeah. So that it goes back into your heart, and then it cycles around. Yeah. So over time, your vessels, like your circulatory vessels, will actually lose some of the blood, lose some of the fluid just naturally. And so this system picks up that fluid and puts it back to where it's supposed to be. All right, is it okay if I move on?
Yes.
So, lymph nodes. These are super important because they house a lot of really critical cells for when you're sick, which is why, we'll go into why your lymph nodes are enlarged when you do get sick. But they vary in size and shape. Generally speaking, they're about 2.5 centimeters long, so they're really pretty tiny. But they're all over your body. You do have concentrations of them like in your armpits, in your neck, in your legs, and they're somewhat bean shaped. They're also encapsulated. Encapsulated means fully covered by a layer of connective tissue so that you can actually have them be connected to your body and not just like loose. They also contain a large number of lymphocytes or lymph cells and macrophages that fight invading microorganisms. Another word for lymphocytes are just white blood cells. So they are a part of that system as well. And then lymph nodes are found in groups or chains along the paths of larger lymphatic vessels throughout the body. So 3 big concentrations are neck, armpit, and inner thigh. Now, the reason why you get enlarged lymph nodes when you're sick, or if it's like more sensitive when you're sick, like if you press your neck and you're like, ow, ow, that hurts, it's because these actually process the dead cells, or like all of the dead white blood cells end up migrating to the lymph nodes, and then they get processed and broken down in that space. And so that's why when you're sick, you have more white blood cells that are dying, trying to fight whatever you are infected with, and then it will end up getting processed eventually, but while you're sick, it still is a sensitive part. What did you focus on? Yeah.
Five minutes, bro.
All right, questions about lymph nodes? Okay. So, there are 2 organs that are really critical within this system. One is called the thymus, and the location is that it sits right above your heart, right in between your lungs. So it doesn't touch your heart, but it's right above it. So if you see this here, this is your thymus, and then your heart is right here. And the function is that it actually holds a lot of lymphocytes that are not yet mature. So they're like waiting in the wing to be pulled in and stimulated so that you can actually fight whatever you need to fight. And then your spleen is actually behind and to the left of your stomach and slightly below your diaphragm. So it's actually going to be on the left side of your body, and it's like right here. Yeah, so it's like right below your ribs and to the left side of your body. And you can see that, where is it? It's this here. Oh, sorry, no, that's the liver. This is your spleen right here. All right. So your spleen will actually filter the blood and lymph fluid. So both the circulatory system and your lymphatic system are filtered through this organ, which is why it's so critical. And it also holds many red blood cells, lymphocytes, and macrophages. Macrophages are cells that will just eat any type of foreign particle. And they'll destroy it in the process. Yeah.
There's this show on TLC, it's called The Untold Stories of the ER, something like that. And there was this episode where this guy got stabbed by a heel on his spleen. So it was like an actual high heel. And when they took it out, like the blood went into his lungs. Is that actually possible in real life?
I don't know if it would necessarily go into your lungs.
Like they have to.
It is possible. Like if it went, say, like through his ribs and into the spleen, like through the lung portion
Something
tissue,
like that, yeah.
and then through your diaphragm, like if it went that way, yeah, when you pull it out, it's gonna pull the blood and it's gonna fill up the lung, fill up the diaphragm where it's not supposed to be. Yeah, it is possible. It just depends on the angle at which it was like punctured.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, because then if you like go up, it's not necessarily going to, because the puncture wound is like not necessarily going to reach far enough for it to spread to your lungs and diaphragm. But if it's from like the side or goes through the rib cage, then yeah, definitely. But interesting, like, connection. All right, questions about the thymus or the spleen? No? Macrophages. Yeah, macrophage just means like big or big eater. All right. So, let's get I move next slide. No.
Sorry.
It's okay. Alright. Almost. So the lymphatic system is one of my favorite systems. I think it's fascinating. And every single person in this room has a different immune system, or a different lymphatic system, which is also really cool. So there's 7.9 billion different combinations so far of immune systems. All right. So, a couple functions of your immune system. One, lymphatic vessels transport excess or lost fluid away from interstitial spaces. So interstitial means between cells in most tissues and returns it to the bloodstream. Now, without the lymph system, this fluid would actually accumulate in these spaces and put a lot of pressure to the point where the cells within those surrounding tissues would end up not functioning correctly. This also, our system, like this system, enables us to live in another, like in the world with other organisms. And so cells and biochemicals of the lymphatic system launch generalized and targeted attacks against particles that are noted as not self. And this enables the body to destroy infectious agents, protect us against toxins and cancer cells. So pretty important functions, right? If we didn't have this, we'd probably be sick like all the time. And we'll talk about the generalized and the targeted attacks tomorrow. So what does the red and the blue in that image represent? What do the red and blue vessels illustrate in that image? What system?
First, something with the blood. The blue is oxygen, not something oxygen and oxygenated blood. So,
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called. Something. I wasn't here for that.
What's our big system that we literally just talked about? Circulatory, yeah. Those are our blood vessels, the red and the blue. The green is what? Yeah, our lymphatic system. So they're intertwined. They pretty much are like right next to each other because the lymph system needs to take away the excess fluid that gets lost. All right, so okay if I move on?
No.
All right, questions about the functions? So, there are a couple different types of cells within the lymphatic system. Lymphocytes generally are known also as white blood cells that are formed in the bone marrow. Now we talked about that when we were talking about our bones. And are active in lymphatic tissue. There's a couple different general types of these cells. One type is called B cells, and these recognize antigens. What are antigens again?
Cell markers.
Cell markers, yes. Thank you. Now, there's plasma B, or plasma B cells that produce antibodies. What are antibodies? We talked about this with blood. What are our antibodies?
It's like what fights the. I have the idea, I just don't know how to explain it. But it goes against something else, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, so antibodies, and we'll go into the different classes of them. But antibodies usually look like a little Y. And this part here will actually attach to an antigen and label that cell for destruction, which is what's happening there. So in that image, the B cell, the plasma B, produce these antibodies, and they connect it to the antigens on this cell, therefore labeling it for destruction. Memory B, on the other hand, recognize the antigens and signal for starting destruction of the pathogen. So I just wanted to show you, like, usually plasma Bs work in days, so they're stimulated and then it takes a couple days to actually create this perfect antibody. And then it only takes a couple hours when you have the memory of it, of an antigen, and get that stimulated. Which is why I say, like, you have the same strain of flu twice. First time you're gonna be sick for longer because your body is like, oh, this is new. We have to make antibodies and we don't have any memory yet. And then the second time you have it, it's like, oh, we remember this. We're just gonna kickstart this production, destroy everything in a matter of hours. Which is pretty cool. All right, questions about B cells? No? Okay. So our other group is something called T cells. Now T cells mature in the thymus, which is why they're called T cells, because thymus is a T. So they're known as T cells. And there's three different types. One is called a helper T cell. And these cells also recognize antigens. And what they do is they stimulate B cells, so the ones that produce the antibodies, and they stimulate killer T cells. Killer T also recognize antigens, but these ones actually will cause abnormal cells to burst. And so these actually do the destroying of the foreign cells and pathogens. And then memory T also recognize antigens and stimulate memory B cells and killer T cells. So helper T just gets the process started faster. Killer T's actually do the destroying part of the system. And then memory T will say, okay, we recognize this. We're gonna produce more T cells that are going to help us destroy the pathogens faster. These are also known as cytotoxic T cells. So helper T stimulate plasma B cells. Memory T stimulates memory B cells. And that's just showing you what it, like an image of what it does. Questions about T cells? No? Alright, so give a move to the next one. So within our system, there's a lot of different types of antibodies. And there's actually 5. So Ig is known also as immunoglobulin. I think I put that on your page. And it denotes an antibody. So antibodies function to clump antigens together or cells together, and it signals destruction. And there's 5 major classes. There is IgG, which is gamma. You don't like. Those have to generally. I'll make sure that you all know which one I'm going to look at. And IgG recognizes pathogens, and it actually will cross the placenta during pregnancy. IgA is known as the alpha strain, and this is present in breast milk, sweat, and tears, and prevents pathogens from entering just across the board. IgM is mu, and it's the first line of defense. It helps to regulate the immune system and immunological tolerance. IgE is the epsilon strain, and this mediates allergic reactions. My allergies are going, so I have a lot of these right now because my allergies are really bad. And then we have IgD, which is delta. They don't know what it does. They've done so many different studies on it, tried to figure out what it does, but no one really knows. Okay, so what does this spell? Why did I put it in this order? Game. Yeah. Oh. Makes it super simple and easy to remember the different letters. I won't have you memorize the different strain names. I'll just the IG with the capital letter. So that's why I put it in gamed. Okay. Questions?